Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do, the usual disclaimers. I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter today because I know you guys are catching these on the later side, but I'm going to spend today cobbling up a list of decent charities and advocacy groups that are not Autism Speaks or NAS out in Britain that actually do give a shit and do good things in regards to us autistic folks as an alternative to donate to instead of those money grubbing opportunistic frauds that are Autism Speaks and NAS. You know, the types of groups, advocacy organizations, networks, and charities that we actually know the money goes to the families and adults like myself. So, some little bit of work for me today because the idea just kind of sparked in my brain, and let's hope I can get that list out to as many individuals as humanly possible. All right, folks. Disclaimers. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you can find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. Please, in particular, take note of the article written by NeuroClastic, a small non for profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Center doesn't want you to read that article so much. They threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit. They did not remove it from the website. So, folks, NeuroClastic refused. You know the drill. Please read that article. Share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement in regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding just in case the JRC ever actually does see through with their threat. Trigger warning 1. When we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center and Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please make sure to go ahead and utilize the headphones, alright? Trigger warning 2. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously, parental supervision is very much advised, alright? Okay, so where we left off the other day, right? Crap, I got something stuck on me. Hold on. Bleh. It's one of those kind of days. Alright. Where we left off, shall we? Let me kind of reread real quick. I'm sorry we do not have an edit button. We are not well versed in this. Okay. So this is in regards when we were talking about replacement behavior. What replacement behavior looks like, folks, for those who are not moots inside the field, is to replace the undesired behavior with what has been told to you by professionals is neurotypical behavior. Here's a problem. Well, there's a lot of problems, but let's just start with one right off the top. The so called replacement behavior is usually an unnatural behavior. It's unnatural because it's unauthentic, which means the replacement behavior that is supposedly neurotypical isn't. All right? What it is what they would want neurotypical behavior to be, not what it actually is. That's why when it comes up, when we're masking and we're doing it in the way that they want us to, It comes off as unauthentic and still paints the same target on our backs. But now we've got resentment because we have individuals feeling like, well, you're hiding something from me. Okay? So, just that to start off right off the top. Okay? It's usually an unauthentic behavior that these individuals have convinced themselves somehow, in spite of being neurotypical themselves and knowing it wouldn't be natural to them, that's what they want to replace our bad behaviors with. Okay? Just right off the bat there. It has no effect because it's unauthentic. And people automatically assume that you're hiding something when you come off as unauthentic. All right? This is why, in spite of if we cross all our T's, dot all our I's, and do everything that they tell us to at ABA, why we're still ostracized. Because what they've had us replace our behaviors with and crafts our masks out of is built off of a fan fiction version of a neurotypical peer. Okay? It's completely unauthentic. It comes off as unauthentic, and then now you've got suspicion. All right? Let's start there. Number two. But Tiffany, if it's replacing the behavior of self interest behavior, here's the problem. That's not where it stops. Okay. Anyone who is rational, like myself, and know what we do when we're in that area of our diagnosis with self-injurious behavior are not going to sit there and argue with you that we need to replace it with something else that maybe isn't quite so physically painful. To put blunt, this is not a difficult concept to wrap our brains around, all right? Couple issues here. To start with, when we get into that state and when they talk self injurious behavior, what they're really meaning is meltdown, there is no replacement behavior. Do you understand me? When we get to the meltdown time period, it is no longer just general frustration about not being able to communicate to an individual who refuses to communicate on our level. All right. Meltdowns are uncontrollable. When we've hit that state, you can't pre-program, which is what ABA is. You cannot pre-program someone with repetition ad nauseum to do a different behavior when they're getting ready to go into meltdown to replace it, because that's not how any of this shit works. This is why I tell you it's so damn harmful when they continue to perpetuate this idea that meltdowns are willful. Nobody signs up to get so frustrated, mad, and angry at the injustice, the insanity, and all the above and beyond expectations that is placed on us. Nobody signs up to start suddenly ramming their heads at full speed repeatedly into a solid wall, Karen. Nobody signs up to come out of meltdown to be covered in your own blood and scraps of skin and feel all the pain now that the adrenaline's wore off that we have inflicted ourselves in that state. Nobody's willfully choosing to mutilate themselves, Karen. Understand me on this, because I've been having this argument for damn near 20 years. And my God, I'm tired. You can't pre program an automatic response to automatically kick in place of a meltdown. When the meltdown energy is there and all the signs have been completely missed and no interventions have been utilized to start a calm down, as it were, as is in my program, thank God. When we are in that state, there is no pre-programmed replacement behavior for that time period, because a meltdown is not willful. A meltdown is not something that we choose to go into. We are not willfully choosing to horrifically harm ourselves in that space of time, okay? Please, for the love of God, wrap your brains around this concept. Now, if you can do that, if you can wrap your brain around this concept that we are not willfully choosing to go into meltdown, the other counter argument goes a little something like this. If this doesn't tell you how long I've been having this goddamn useless conversation because people refuse to listen to me, because you have a label, you're articulate, you're intelligent, and you're pretty. But your label means that, maybe you just don't know. Bitch, I am the first person on planet Earth that actually knows, all right? Sorry, but god damn, it's frustrating. The other counter argument, let me get into it. Here goes a little something like this. Well, no, I understand that you don't have control in that moment. But what if we could show you better behaviors to replace the more violent ones during meltdown? Bitch, the fuck did I just say? By the way, if you can tell that just came from my whole soul. This is another thing that is hard to describe to others, that I've finally, over the past few years, been starting to wrap some of the higher brains in medicine around here. They're starting to come around to the idea. Meltdown is the quintessential knock knock, nobody the fuck is home. Okay? It is pure, unadulterated animal brain, at least in my case. Okay? There is no replacing behavior. There is, but we can show you another way that can replace it when you're going through that. Any more than you can teach the animal. Being an animal, the same sort of thing, okay? But if we could teach you to better ways to communicate the frustration, I'm going to put it to you. I need you to listen to me. The point in time when you need to be teaching me better ways to communicate with you're completely unable to and unwilling to meet me halfway has already gone out the window by the time the self-injurious meltdown is happening in front of you. Okay? We are not present mind in a way that neurotypicals are going to be able to wrap their brains around. All right? Knock knock. Nobody the fuck is home. All right? It is sheer animal brain and animal instinct. And just like you would not approach a violent, angry, and obviously needs help animal in any way, shape, or form that's going to provoke anything worse, you know, You know, there's a reason why I say if you can get that person to a safe space in order to have that meltdown, make it as padded and safe and sensory friendly as humanly goddamn possible. That's what you do. You can't be demanding replacement behaviors from an individual who's neurodivergent, who's autistic, who's in middle of a meltdown. There is no demanding. The computer is not computing. Okay? It's ridiculous. The whole replacement behaviors on some ends, I do understand that. All right. I've seen it work and work brilliantly with many of people have encouraged and have advocated for it when the situation is necessary, but for God's sake, within goddamn reason. Okay? We're talking replacement behavior that is not unauthentic, but is taught in a way that we don't have to mask while doing it. It's a way to teach us with a replacement behavior that is actually our own behavior, just better used for the situation at hand before it escalates to meltdown. That is what we should be doing. Not trying to force someone to become somebody else for somebody else's fucking comfort because god damn it, we are tired. Right? But in regards to teaching a replacement behavior to a less desirable behavior, yes, I know I do it on this channel repeatedly, but I'd like to point people in my general direction of my aunt and my mom. Because I did it very simply and humorously because I don't accept unauthenticity for my mom either. It would go a little something like this. For the love of God, Tiff, could you just say this instead of doing this? Easiest thing in the damn world, folks. Because guess what? I would take her suggestion. But it was a suggestion framed in a way that it wasn't forcing me to suddenly don a mask and do it as though I am someone else, but telling me, authentic, autistic me, what should be done in the place of the more troubling behavior in a time period where I am cognitive and there with you in the room and am able to do it. A replacement behavior that's authentic to us that makes sense was how I was taught, folks. Even before they even realized that I was autistic, they did this. And it worked. Funny, isn't it? It worked amazingly. Because I wasn't pretending to be somebody else when doing that replacement behavior that had been suggested to me in such a matter. It wasn't a big deal. The professional side of ABA, on the other hand, would say, well, this is what you got to do, and you got to say it like this, and you can't look at like that. You can't be stimming while you're doing it. Normal people don't do that. None of that shit happened. Thank God. I got enough of that stuff at school. At least there were a few safe spaces. You know what I'm saying? At least while mom and aunt were in the room. And stepbrother wasn't. That's its own subject of dark history. But you get what I'm saying here, right? Most normal thing in the world. That is how you treat a replacement behavior that has the potential to stay there in place of one that might not be so great for our health. Okay? You do it before the self-injurious behavior starts creeping up, because by the time that hits, your kid is in meltdown. There is no more replacement behavior. All right? Now that I've ranted on that, got that out of my system, let's go ahead and read the response. God, I kind of went off for a moment, didn't I? The FDA disagrees, as would any rational human being on planet Earth. Although the article does state that favorable changes often took place in patients once most SIB had been eliminated, especially if it was deliberately placed by desirable behaviors. And remember, medical desirable behaviors in no way, shape, or form reflect real human life. That is why I just told you the little story that I did, because they come across as overclinical, fake, and unauthentic, which makes the individuals who see you engage in those so called replacement behaviors suspicious. That's what it is. This does not mean favorable changes usually or always take place, or that the SIB was often or usually eliminated, or most importantly, that it was often or usually replaced by desirable behaviors. I'm going to challenge the JRC, or as I prefer to put it, I'm going to pick a fight. And I'm going to pick a fight over this. Those of us who are neurodivergent, those of us who are autistic, those of us who've been through horrific abuse that's gone on for a duration of years, we've gone over this before, will essentially do every single last thing that you've asked us to do, down to the very last dot at the end of the last sentence. And mask as a survival mechanism. It's self preservation, folks. It's the most animalist thing about us human folks. It's survival. We are showing you what you want to see so that the insane, barbaric, cruel torture and abuse will stop. Now, I know most of you will tell me, well, that's a success, though, isn't it? Obviously, you've replaced all these bad behaviors with everything that the JRC has taught you, and now you can go forward and be successful faking being somebody else. Go ask any actor. Is it easy for multiple hours a day for days, months, sometime years to pretend to be a role, pretend to be somebody else for that long of a period of time? Because I'm going to say no, it's not. It's exhausting. And eventually, the more tired that we become, the more that mask is going to crack. And wouldn't you know it, the autistic comes out of us. All right? One cannot hold a mask on themselves indefinitely and not suffer some form of ramifications from this. You being shown exactly what you want to see is a survival mechanism for the torture to stop. But eventually, it's going to crack. In fact, the JRC has actually told us this for when those behaviors started cropping up again, because they put the device back on them again. By proof. So the answer is, should we then just torture you again until you put your mask on and mask until we have it happen again? Obviously not. That's not an answer. which means even if you are being shown by some of these students exactly what you want to see so that they can be fed properly instead of having to perform for every bite of food like a performing seal, not be shocked again just below the lethal limit multiple times within a span of seconds, and not be constantly sleep deprived. Yeah, we'll wear a mask, but we're human beings. We cannot play that role forever. You have no idea how exhausting it is. I can't put it into words for you. Okay? And then what happens when that mask cracks, for what we know of the JRC? So you can't call it real progress when it's fake, when it's a mask, when it's something that was used and crafted in order to get the abuse to stop. Because when it cracks, we start the cycle over again. That's not real progress. And I'm glad the FDA is calling it out here, but let's continue, shall we? Indeed, the article explains that at the study sites where the skin shocks was used, the positive effects were temporary, and the SI returned if shocks were delivered by a different staff member or in a different room. Jesus Christ. So they would literally wait. This is some sinister shit. Literally wait for your mask to slip so that they can torture you again. You're going to try to tell me again this is progress, JRC, rather than your staff sadistically grinning, waiting for that moment? The authors observed occasionally the one type of SI be reduced, another would appear in its place, and given the likelihood of reinforcement of negative behaviors, the probability that a replacement behavior will be undesirable is quite high. So there it is, folks, right there in the black and white. Why this comment, JRC Cooley drinking son of a bitch, is completely and utterly wrong, is because what these people, even in the medical model, see as success is nothing more than a well crafted lie. A lie that we feel forced to have to produce for all of you so that we no longer have to endure the torture, the trauma, and continue to be beat down until we accept the self hatred they want us to feel towards ourselves. All right? It's not real. And what happens when you're just really exhausted, folks? The mask cracks. And then with places like JRC and the medical model, there we are at square one again. This is why I push person centered planning, because it goes past all this outdated, insane nonsense. We're going to close on that, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. You know the drill, folks. Please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to hit those comments. I appreciate your time. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I'll see you again in a few minutes. Bye-bye, everyone.